Call this meeting of the Agriculture Committee to order. Would you please call the roll, Clerk?
Chair Neyer.
Here.
Representative Warts. Here. Leitner. Alexander.
Here.
Fox.
Present.
Coons.
Present.
Pavlo.
Here.
Pies. Devendorf. Reingens. Skaggs.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. For those you don't know, Representative Vice Chair Pies is feeling a little bit under the weather, but she is with us via Zoom, so she is listening. With that, in the interest of time, we'll ask Greg Bird from the Vegetable Council to come up and please give us a presentation.
All right. Good morning, Ag Committee. Thank you, Rep. Neyer and the rest of the committee members for having the Michigan vegetable industry here today to kind of give you vegetable farming 101. A lot of information in the next 15 to 20 minutes, so we are going to get rolling here. Michigan Vegetable Council represents the Michigan vegetable industry. There's some of our information right there. Here's our agenda today. Carnament Farms and Logistics Kent will talk first, then Van Dyke Farms, Adam Van Dyke will talk second, and then I will talk some about the Michigan Vegetable Council. And then we're also going to keep it lighthearted. We'll see if this comes up. Maybe it's security measures, we'll see. So what we got here is our quality control for the vegetable industry. And I test out new vegetable products with my animals to see if they like them. And let's see if the dog likes it. Yeah, I'm guessing the dog likes it. I'm sorry, this isn't important. I just thought it's something for you to, So they don't like watermelon, and we even consider watermelon a vegetable. It's a cucurbit, all right? So vegetable growers grow watermelon. So I just wanted to do that for some fun. So we're going to go on to Kent Carnament from Carnament Farms.
Good morning. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for your service on this great committee. I appreciate this. I'm Kent Carnament. I'm one of the managing partners from our farm up in Fremont, which is home of Gerber Baby Food. Our farm began there over 52 years ago in its present format when my parents, Al and Marlene Carnament, determined that they were passionate people and that they would farm. They began to build what has become Carnament Farms. From that start of 80 acres, our business has fluctuated between 2,000 and 3,500 acres. Currently, we operate about 2,000 acres with a great team of dedicated workers of about 60 people, and the passion for making that all work comes from myself and my brother Tom, our 2 wives, our 7 sons, and our 5 daughters. Like those that went before us, we are passionate about what we do, and we farm as well. In the past, our business has been involved in a lot of diversity. One of our values is that we always want to be adaptable. So we've been involved in wood production, real estate sales. We've owned a land development company. We had a grass-fed beef Great Lakes cattle company raising beef for retail sales. We've also owned a full retail greenhouse and operated that. Currently, in an effort to remain viable and healthy, we have the farm, which grows potatoes, carrots, squash, and pumpkins. We have Carnament's Logistics, which is an inventory management and handling company for several ag processors. We have K2 Trucking, so we have about 25 trucking units on the road hauling various ag and forestry products throughout Michigan every day. We own a company called Modern Produce Equipment, where we supply processing equipment to the potato and vegetable industry. We are reps for 3 manufacturers in England, and we sell them in the east half of the United States. We have a truck brokerage where we coordinate and align loads and keep things efficient for other trucks as well as our own. And we own a seed and fertilizer dealership called Modern Ag Solutions. As the company navigates the day-to-day, our family walks through the following challenges. And so that you might recall this when I'm done, I've kind of put it together with an acronym of FARM: foreign competition, aquifer, regulation, and manpower. Foreign competition: our shelves on our stores are filled with farm products sourced with little regard for labor rates, food safety, and the environment. It's really hard for American farms to compete with products that come from areas that aren't made to measure up to what we're required to do. That is a problem. A would be for aquifer. The American farmer is disproportionately made responsible for the conservation of our water resource. Not all water consumers are created equal. Given that the Michigan Water Withdrawal Assessment Tool is very user-friendly, the end result of that often leaves producers in a precarious spot where land is financially prohibits it from taking the water that's there available, and that is an issue. R would be for regulation. Beyond water, food safety, labor, transportation, land use, land division, wildlife management, and manure management all present difficult areas to navigate on a daily basis. At times, keeping up with all of this can be overwhelming. And M would be manpower, starting off with the level of minimum wage that we're required to look at in Michigan, along with the choices we have of an H-2A workforce or a traditional migrant workforce, dealing with housing, training and preparing that workforce to use the technology available to us, is all questions that a producer needs to answer and figure out, and avoid the penalty and the issue of using an illegal workforce that is available. Our society has realized the challenge of this labor and determined that they will clean it up at the front door of the American family farm. And that's not a good situation. Presents a lot of hardship, and I think unnecessarily so. Most family farms survive this because, like us, they've determined that they are passionate about what they do, and they will farm. I told my wife Kimberly last night, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm not looking forward to delivering a negative and draining message in a positive, optimistic fashion. So in an attempt to accomplish that, let me close with this. I believe that God gifted us the opportunity to be passionate about what we do, so we farm. This is a divine gift, and that is a thought that's shared by 5 generations of Carnomats, and we've been thankful for that from the very beginning. The farm and the life that we enjoy there has been an amazing blessing to us. So considering all that I know, I will always view each day as a gift. I will always be passionate about what we do. However, I'm not sure that I will always farm. Thanks a lot for listening and for being here.
Thanks, Kent. And so what we'll do is we'll run through Adam and myself, and then have time for questions at the end. So we'll move on to Adam Van Dyke from Van Dyke Farms in Imlay City.
Hi, my name's Adam Van Dyke. I'm from Van Dyke Farms. Thank you all for having me. My family's farm is located in Imlay City, Michigan, about an hour north of Detroit. We are a grower, packer, and shipper. We ship sweet corn, parsnips, rhubarb, field corn, and soybeans we will grow for rotation, but our main thing is lettuce and leafy greens, romaine, iceberg, red leaf, and green leaf. those typically will go to, we'll pack them in the fields and then we'll ship them to anything from a produce stand to a grocery store. And then we will go to processors throughout the East Coast generally, from New Jersey and Maryland down to Florida and Texas. We had some go to Mexico last year. But in general, they will chop it up and put it into, let's say, a pre-made salad at Costco and Kroger, or when you go to Panera Bread and things like that. We farm in Imlay City mainly because it originally started from my great-great-grandfather, came to the area, kind of was a Dutch pocket that saw the muck or the wetlands and knew that what the muck could do when it came to vegetable production, because that was what he had done back home. And so they drained the fields, and now we have a pretty good farming area in our town. It's a little bit different from clay and sand. If you are not familiar with muck, kind of can be high in different nutrients and also have unique moisture retention properties that you don't see in many places, kind of like a sponge. But essentially, it has helped us grow lettuce, which has been great. We are also in a region that kind of can be a little bit cooler. Lettuce likes cool temperatures. Michigan can get 80, 90 degrees. Fortunately, we're able to grow a lot of lettuce, even though ideally lettuce is grown out west in California. That's where 90% is California and Yuma, Arizona. We're able to grow some and be a regional supplier. And then we're also close to, as you know, many large cities with Chicago, New York, Detroit close by. That has also helped when it comes to shipping. We buy many of our supplies from a lot of local companies, ag equipment dealers, local mechanic shops, packaging companies, seed companies, local contractors when it comes to construction, heating and cooling and electrical, chemical companies, local banks, local insurance, local fuel companies. We definitely try to focus on local first and then go outside from that if necessary. What is difficult about our situation now is we're coming up to farm succession. So there's my dad and my uncle, and now it's going to be me and my brother. And as you know, succession is not always the easiest. One, coming to an agreement when it comes to evaluation of what is something worth. And then two, for me and my brother, we commonly now have discussions about, are we buying an actual business with an opportunity, or is it more of a curse that we're tied to because with an increase in regulations, with an increase in costs, are things not going to necessarily pencil out in this investment that might take 20, 30 years to pay off? Are we fools? That's not a fun discussion to have, but we also are happy to be a part and very thankful to be a part of the family and farm that we are. Why we tend to look at our acreage every year. So the winter is when we discuss what acreage we're going to do, what crops we're going to do. That commonly comes down to our customers' contracts. So if demand goes down, if people buy less salads, they will maybe give us a small portion and kind of give us percentages. But as our costs go up, they'll change their percentages. It used to be mostly out west. As freight's gone up, they started to come into the East Coast, but as prices continue to rise, box costs are up 60% from several years ago. You look at labor, same thing, plastic, things like that. They can't necessarily always pass that along, so what do? They start shipping in more from Mexico and things like that. So then they start giving them quite a large portion, and that has been growing over the past few years at a pretty large rate. The other thing is just market pricing. Some of our stuff is still open market, so if we have enough years of loss, we'll start cutting back. And then two, we are really focused on sustainability of our ground when it comes to the health of the ground. We don't like to have disease because that affects your yields. What does it matter if you keep growing something that has been good over the past few years if you're just adding disease to your ground that will destroy? That has happened for many different commodities throughout the state, and so we really try hard to rotate our ground and find alternatives that keep our ground healthy. The workforce at our farm, we have about 190 people. If anybody is knowledgeable when it comes to H2A or has contributed to that, I want to personally thank you. The H2A program, our farm would not be who we are without it. Basically 10, 12 years ago, we had a decision in the off season where like either we're going to cut back significantly because we can't get enough people, or we're going to try the H2A and go from there. We were only getting about 40% of our workforce coming up from Florida. Fortunately, we've been able to use H2A and have a workforce that is reliable. Though expensive, they do a phenomenal job. However, that has now tied our hands to a program that continues to go up, once again adding to that whole cost problem. We have also 20 local employees, 8 of which are family members in different capacities. H2A is essential, but two, when it comes to the rate, for what it's worth, if it's going high, we all know that quite fast, but it's also unnecessarily going up at the rate. We're not having an influx in locals wanting to do those jobs. I work in youth group, youth ministries. I have kids come and ask for jobs. As soon as I explain the jobs, they move right on. Also college students and stuff like that. And so to raise it thinking that a rate will change the habits, I just haven't seen that yet. And so it's also, if we want to compete and keep food low, that is something that we need to focus on. Food safety on our farm is a really big deal. Leafy greens are really high when it comes to food safety regulations. We're constantly testing things. We do water tests on harvest water that's on harvesters. We test our wells monthly. We do leaf samples, 1 acre leaf samples that then get tested in a lab for E. coli, listeria before we ship it. We constantly clean and make sure we test the ATP levels to make sure if product is touching it that it is clean and sanitary, and all that is for a customer to then accept it. These types of levels have also added to the volatility of markets and the risk of what the next generation is buying into. It's scary to buy a company that one listeria or E. coli outbreak could shut your doors, let alone these weather events of you get the wrong rainstorm, or as we had 2 years ago, constant rainstorms that 1 year could wipe you out. It's kind of put fear into the next generation. However, there are many positives about farming, and one of them is raising a family. I have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls that I hope to raise up in the farm and experience it in a lot of the ways that I was able to. One of the main things I grew up with was the word responsibility. We learned pretty quickly when my dad used to give us, every week we had to do the red leaf patch, and he said you had to have this wed by the end of the week. Being kids, we started at the end of the week, which was never wise because a weed grows quite a bit, pretty fast. And so you can do it in 3 hours on Monday, or you can do it in 12 hours on Saturday, and that's your weekend. So we learned pretty quickly what it means to do things at the right time when they need to be done and be responsible. I hope to pass it along to my kids. Also, hard work and being selfless. You learn what it means to work together with your team like we do constantly throughout the year. When we've had the rain events that we have, you see all of us owners and everyone included running around with shovels and pumps and getting the water off of our crop, because that is what our year is dependent on, and we need to get it off within the next 24, 48 hours or we lost it. And then also the importance of listening and learning. We constantly are learning from the previous generation or just people that have been doing the jobs around us. To come in, think that you can do it better right off the bat, it's a whole lot easier to just listen and see why people do what they do. And that's another large benefit of being on a farm and being raised on a farm. When it comes to the industry as a whole, I think Michigan has a very successful agricultural industry, very diverse, if you do not know, and we have very large opportunity ahead of us as the West Coast with water shortages and things like that. I just hope that there are not regulations that limit the growth, because Michigan has the opportunity to really grow agriculture in a lot of different ways. There's different challenges that we face when it comes to real estate, competing with things like solar or just potentially developments or different land grabs and investments and things like that. That has kind of made it harder for farming. And then two, farmers in some ways, I heard it phrased a few months ago, that some government regulations, MDARD and things like that, sometimes aren't as focused on helping farmers like they used to. They're kind of moving towards assuming you're wrong and going from there. And that also can restrict growth. As there's opportunity, I just am fearful of seeing things start to shift in that way. Feel free to visit our farm. You guys are more than welcome to come, and I also encourage you, as Greg gets to when it comes to the expo, if you do not know much about the industry, feel free to come out to the farms and see really what Michigan farming is about. It is a pretty amazing thing, and whether it's leafy greens, whether it's fruits, whether it's dairy, Michigan does a great job with agriculture. Thank you.
Thanks, Kent and Adam. I'm going to talk for just a minute or two about the Michigan Vegetable Council. It's a 501c5 agricultural organization created in 1964. And Adam just mentioned the Great Lakes Expo, December 9th through 11th, 2025. This is a third of our trade show at the DeVos Place in Grand Rapids. This is the fruit and vegetable show. It's the biggest fruit and vegetable show this side of California. Haven't been there, you need to get there. We hosted people a couple years ago, and we're going to do that again. So get in touch with somebody from the Vegetable Council or myself to get an invite there. Let's see. Research. One of the main mission goals of the Vegetable Council is to promote vegetable research. We work closely with MSU. Some of the projects we worked on them with is Project Green. So in your position, you've probably heard of Project Green. We do a lot of research projects with MSU through money through that. Climate Resiliency is currently 2 years old, asking for $2 million recurring funds and $8 million for grant program in the 2026 state budget, which is very important to us. And then Specialty Crop Block Grant. It's part of the USDA Farm Bill, goes through MDARD, and then we take those grants and give them to MSU to do research for us. Education is one of our goals to promote vegetable education. Since 2001, we have awarded $182,300 in scholarships. Workforce, they already touched on it a little bit. House Resolution 29, hopefully we'll make it through the Michigan legislature in the near future. It just says that we need to put a pause on that H-2A wage rate. It's too high as it is, and we need to tell the federal government that Michigan's in support of that. It's $18.15 an hour currently, and that doesn't include transportation or housing that has to be provided for the H-2A workforce. Let's see. Michigan is a great place to grow vegetables because of the water we have here. And the last main screen, I have some statistics for us. Talks about the Protect Our Produce campaign, which has to do with the H-2A visa and the workforce and the adverse effect wage rate. Here's some statistics for you. These are always a couple years old. We get them from the USDA. 3,000 plus farms, 152,000 acres, $706 million farm gate, 25 processors, 1.285 billion of total economic impact. There's a new report out for specialty crops, fruit, vegetables, nursery, and landscape that shows that it's $6.3 billion in the supply chain. It supports nearly 41,700 jobs. Unfortunately, from 2017 to 2022, we lost 13,000 vegetable acres in the state due to costs and retirements, and we've lost a few acres due to solar in 2025. Vegetable industry is an important industry here. We're going to have a tour of pepper and tomato farms in Southwest Michigan June 13th, and Kelly Cawthorn will get invites out to people if that's close enough for you to travel to. And I believe that's all we have for presentation. I don't know how we're doing for time, but we'd be happy to answer a few questions if people have any.
All right. Thank you very much. Questions? Representative Fox?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I just want to give some words of encouragement to two Dutchmen, okay? I just want to remind you that you spoke very well of the biblical worldview and what you're up to, and to remember Genesis chapter 1. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it." Verse 29, "Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, and they will be yours for food." And then verse 31, God saw all that he made, and it was very good. So I want to encourage you men, your families. It's great to hear you share what you share and to share your hearts. And I plan to be at your expo. Looking forward to that. Greg and I have talked about that already. So, I guess my question, now that I've preached a little sermon, my question for you is, if you were God, and we know we're not, okay? If you were God, what regulations would you like to see changed, fixed, adapted? And you don't have to totally answer me right now. Maybe just start, but I would love an email from you or whatever. But if you've got some quick comments, that's fine. But that's my question.
I think for me, I would say just some alterations to a really good H2A program. It is, as Adam said, really good, but for Michigan, it has us in a really bad spot. We grew probably a dozen commodities, and the 4 that we're down to are the only 4 that potentially have enough margin to cover the H2A cost. And so we've let a lot of what we could do go because it makes it cost prohibitive to participate and do the housing, the transportation, pay the wage rate, when other states and other countries don't have to do that. And then we come to the marketplace and we have to, show up as equals to them. That makes it really hard. That would be my answer. And I will send you an email.
One of the challenges we have, as I brought up when it comes to muck soil being really limited throughout the state, it's tough. So because we're trying to grow, me and my brother, that's, if you're gonna buy, you should be able to grow it to be able to make sense with the investment. It's a challenge when you see limited muck becoming less and less. We found an area where we were hoping to, and as soon as we started conversations, it got like a year down the road, and then the person had signed it up for solar. So then that was off the table. Then this past year, we purchased a piece of ground. Didn't realize until 2-3 months down the road when FSA contacted us that we're not allowed to farm parts of it due to when it comes to wetlands and stuff like that. And so it's kind of just, as you dig more and more, you're like, are we going to be able to do more? Are we just be happy with what you got and just grow on what you got type of thing? And then too, there's a lot of muck that was in our area that has been sold off when it comes to, we got a Scott spotting mix down from us, and anyways, they sell off the muck and stuff like that. So basically, it's the fact that we have very limited ground that we can grow it on, and seeing it be depleted in a lot of different ways, that's a challenge. And I understand too, when it comes to wetlands, that's a really touchy, challenging thing in itself. But I know that's one thing that really impacts our farm.
Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony. My question is going to be directed directly towards Van Dyke Farms. I'm pretty familiar with that area. As a former drain commissioner, I sat on the Intercounty Drainage Board and maintained and repaired the dam just upstream of your farm. So it's pretty vital for you guys, for sure. We're all accustomed to, and we recognize that there's insurances when it comes to corn, beans, wheat, other crops, that the rain events that you experienced a couple of years ago, if it had been corn, beans, or wheat, there'd have been insurances to help you guys offset the burdens of the expense, the loss. Is there any that kind of safety net in the vegetable world?
Very good question, and that was my off-season project 2 years ago after we had that rain event, was to basically look in every way I can to find out if there's any insurance available, and there was not. We had no insurance at that point. Just the previous year, there was a whole farm insurance that I'd say was subsidized to the point that it was finally an opportunity for us to where we could. So just last year was the first year we got this whole farm insurance that had just, like I said, been an opportunity. And that's one of the saving parts for me and my brother getting into our situation, that we can finally, that gives us peace that, let's say, limits the risk given the status of the industry and stuff like that. So now we found one that hopefully will help us. 2 years ago when we had the rain that we didn't have anything. But there are some, it's just lettuce itself is not grown in our area, so it's not as common as corn and beans and things like that. So there was not something set up that way. And there's not something set up on the West Coast either when it comes to lettuce. So our commodity itself did not.
Awesome, thank you. I actually knew the answer to that, but I asked it for a specific purpose because I lived it, right? As North Branch, the Mill Creek also presents a challenge for you guys because it goes right through your farm, right? It's an intercounty drain managed by the Department of Agriculture and the Intercounty Drainage Board. You had made some reference to some testing and stuff that could be affected by overflows from that drain. And obviously, some of the things that you guys test for, but you mentioned ATP. What does ATP stand for when you're testing?
Yeah, so it's a level of what you could say germs on a belt. So a conveyor belt that we're throwing because we go to processors can go on a bulk bin. So you could say it's like the level of germs on the belt, and it needs to be below something to where it isn't high enough that it will continue to grow at a rate that it will get on the crop. And so, yeah, just
Which flooding could devastate your crop
yes,
if it
yes.
happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you're near, the flooding's a very big deal. If it floods and comes from an outer creek and stuff, you got to walk away from the field. We lost acres 2 years ago because it came over Mill Creek, and we just said it's not worth the risk. Doesn't matter if it's good. Doesn't matter if we test it. You can't test every single head. And what does E. coli and Listeria come from? Listeria, you got to keep sanitizing, and it can get in the crevice and things like that. E. coli can come from a deer or bird and come from poop and stuff like that. You can't test every single head. So there is an amazing amount of risk, along with have a new neighbor come in from the city that all of a sudden wants to have a petting zoo, and they all of a sudden have 50 animals, within a couple years right next to you. Or when you got people having cattle and things like that, we have to assess every single year where we can plant based on all the things around us. And they're
Thank you.
ever-changing.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Representative Pavel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your very informative presentations. Just a quick question. What kind of a role does organic farming play in your farms, if any?
We've approached organic farming. We've lined up some acreage. We did organic for 2 or 3 years. It comes down to being able to market it and being able to market it consistently. And we've chose to back away from that. And that decision is strictly based on finances. It just didn't, it sounds good. There's a lot of romantic things about organic everything, but in reality, it did not work out for us. Michigan is a tough spot to do a lot of organic commodities because of our high humidity, lots of rainfall. And what makes it an advantage for conventional is a disadvantage for organic, because you have to keep that crop protected one way or the other. Our threshold for disease is always really high because of what Michigan is, and that presented a challenge.
Okay.
We've discussed, thought about it. We've had some people ask for it. However, we've never gone into it. Given lettuce, there's near nothing when it comes to limited herbicides and, let's say, different things that control the weed pressure. And Michigan can really, especially muck, weeds can thrive. You have moisture, you have heat, the weeds will continue to germinate over and over again. So it's basically, we don't have the environment to grow organic lettuce ideally currently, and so we just let it be done out west, and the acreage is kind of cutting back out west, so the market has kind of slowed down to where there's not as much of an incentive as there was years ago.
Thank you.
Representative Rangus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks all for being here today. I'm really interested in hearing a little bit about your ability to work with local institutions as like a place where you supply. I've been interested in learning more about this whole system of food hubs because it seems like a lot of extra work, especially paperwork, contract work for you as an individual farmer to try to make contracts with individual institutions like schools or hospitals or something and like have all these bazillion variable contracts. And for those institutions similarly to like try to find individual farmers. So I'm really interested in the food hub system in Michigan, and I'm curious your relationship with that or what your thoughts are. And I'm actually happy to meet with you separately to go through it more. But just if you have any initial thoughts on participating in food hubs and how that might help your local market.
So I think that's an opportunity for a lot of great family farms that are probably sized a little smaller than ours. Your insight into what that is very accurate, and it would be the way we're structured right now, to make those contacts would be really, really difficult. But we have neighbors that have 100 or 200 acres that are using and utilizing that pretty consistently, and that's really important. Agriculture is based on a lot of different components, and I think that helps keep that size farm really healthy and may grow to be something else. But currently, right now, it would be, for us, it would be a lot of work for the return of what it would actually take of what we produce.
One of my jobs on the farm is I go to the Eastern Market in Detroit, and I do that 3 nights a week and sell to different wholesalers and distributors. And I'll work with wholesalers that do go to places like that. They'll tell me, hey, this is going to U of M's food court, or this is going to different things in Flint and stuff like that. And then we also work with local food banks. And some of the times it can be, I think it's a lot of paperwork, and we'll get contacted from hubs and stuff like that asking if we can supply, and we say yes. And then I don't know if it's like down the road, they had to go through a lot of things to set us up as a supplier or whatever else, but sometimes it happens, and sometimes it ends up just being a few cases, because we'll sell a single case out of the farm if people call, and then we'll deliver. I mean, if people want a whole truckload, 1,000 cases, we'll do that too. And so we are quite open to it and do it. One of the things that I remember seeing like 10 years ago, there was something, and I don't know the program at the time, but there was a value that wholesalers got when they bought local produce, like a tax deduction, that basically there was an influx in a lot of the guys I sold to in Detroit buying local. If it's Michigan, it worked out better price-wise for them to do it that route. I think it only lasted a couple years and then it went away. And I know too, when it comes to doubling food bucks at like markets, farmers markets and stuff like that, that is a really positive thing from what I've experienced with selling local produce and stuff. But I know when it comes to a lot of those hubs too, they sometimes have new buyers every single year, so you finally get a relationship with a person and then it's a new person the next year, and so they kind of just keep defaulting to whatever system was in place in a way. And so quite often it's easier to go through a wholesaler, La Grasso, Adele Bain, La Piccolo and stuff like that. But yeah, and it's open, it's out there, it's a challenge because you kind of keep going through people and a lot of steps, and so they go away from it pretty quick. So
feel free to reach out to me, and we can talk with vegetable growers and talk about who's doing what out there, and I'm happy to do that. So grab my email from there.
Last question, Representative Wards, Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today, and a lot of what you said and what Rep. Fox said, I can relate to. I'm also a farmer, and so know the joys and discomforts of agriculture that even in hours of discouragement we cannot deny. So my question for you is, what's the number one thing, you mentioned the H2A, that's a federal program, what would be the number one thing in Michigan, regulatory wise, or maybe it's farmland preservation? That's something that I've been thinking a lot about. How do we protect our really good soil and crop ground from essentially the inflationary rate of when solar panels go in? It increases acreage fees for all of us. Is it that? Is it something regulatory that we need to work on to make vegetable farming more affordable in Michigan?
Water stuff, though. Yeah. I mean, I'll just start. It probably has to do with water. I mean, we have plenty of water here, and it's just, we want to do a good job preserving it, but we need to be able to use it to grow vegetables, and it's difficult. I don't know if they have a specific example.
I don't. I would reiterate, water is a really big thing, and it's not so much important for Adam and I, because we don't have livestock, but we interact with them a lot, and we use a lot of manure in their compost, and that would be another thing in Michigan that currently, I know there's a lawsuit and there's a lot of discharge issues. We just need to stick to the science of it and get some real solutions for real people that are struggling every day to do what they've done for a long time, and they've done a good job of that. But so I would tie water and manure or compost use kind of together, and that is a Michigan thing. That's something this group can do, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time, and thank you for information. We'll look forward to be talking to you soon. With that, we'll move on to our second item on here on the agenda there. Previously, we heard on HB 4121, our revisioning of the cottage food law. Representative Kuntz offers an amendment to House Bill 4121. In drafting the bill, there was an error, and we are correcting it, changing the term movie to meeting. Representative Kuntz moves that we adopt this amendment. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Chair Neyer,
Yes.
Representative Wertz,
Yes.
Leitner,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Fox,
Yep.
Coons,
Yes.
Pavlo,
Yes.
Pies, Diebendorf,
Yes.
Reingens,
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. Next, Representative Skaggs offers an amendment to House Bill 4121. Representative, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Chair. My amendment removes the increased gross sales dollar limit for products costing more than $250 by increasing the gross sales dollar amount to $75,000. I think these cottage foods laws were established to allow for small-scale entrepreneurs to produce dry goods that were shelf-stable food items that could be safely made and stored without refrigeration. My concern is that complex cooked items like cakes and baked goods that involve multiple ingredients and steps that increase the risk of contamination. These foods often contain perishable components like eggs and dairy that can pose food safety hazards such as salmonella if handled incorrectly. This amendment simply asks that we recognize this fact and act to make sure that products being sold at a higher rate under this law are safe for consumers and not exempted from the licensing and evaluation provisions that would be required at the higher dollar amount. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. There is an amendment and correction. The bill is 4122. Pardon my misspeaking of it earlier there. Chair or Clerk, could you please take a roll call vote on Amendment 2? Or, pardon me? Okay. Representative Skaggs' motion on our second amendment.
Chair Neyer,
No.
Representative Wertz,
No.
Leitner,
No.
Alexander,
No.
Fox,
No.
Coons, Pavlo,
No.
Pies, Diebendorf, pass. Reingens,
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 2 yeas, 7 nays, 1 pass. Motion does not.
Fails.
Motion fails.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll take a roll call vote on House Bill 4122 as amended. Clerk, would you please, can we, sorry. Thank you. With that, Representative Leitner moves that we take up, or vote, pass out House Bill 4122. Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Chair Neyer,
Yes.
Representative Wertz,
Yes.
Leitner,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Fox,
Yay.
Coons,
Yes.
Pavlo,
Yes.
Spies, Eichendorff. Yes. Reingens.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Pass.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 yeas, 0 nays, 1 pass, motion prevails.
Thank you. House Bill 4121 is reported with recommendations out. Or 22, sorry. To the floor. Next on the agenda will be House Bill 4245. Would like to take testimony on it. Would Chair Alexander please present your bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee for bringing this up. House Bill 4122, when we testified on that, we had positive testimony from various different organizations, but I didn't testify at that time. It was just an oversight that didn't happen. But House Bill 4245 just brings in line honey and maple syrup with the cottage food law that was designed 25 years ago. And it just brings it online to the same elevation that other cottage food industries enjoy at this point. It takes it from $15,000, which is a cap, gross sales. Of course, we know what gross sales are, and expenses come out of that beforehand, and you don't really make that a lot of money. So it's definitely not a full-time position. It was designed to be a starting point for people just getting into it. This law also brings it, is a sister bill to the Senate colleagues that Senator Singh just passed unanimously in the Senate side. So it's exact same language, which is already passed unanimously in the Senate. So with that.
Not seeing any questions? Oh, yep, sorry. Representative Reingens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Alexander, last time we talked about this, which was not last week, I had mentioned wondering if we could include some specialty syrups like birch or other syrups. I have a constituent who asked about this specifically, and I'm wondering if there's a way to add that here or possibly add it when we get the Senate bill. I just am interested in adding additional tree syrups.
At some point, we could potentially take an amendment to it, but it's also consistent with the Senate bill at this point, so it might be a floor. Is that a floor?
Or we could do a separate bill. I am just making sure I say it into the microphone on the cameras so that it is in the record
Right.
that I'm asking you to please do this. And if you can't, I'm happy to do it on my own. So,
Please,
yeah.
bring it on.
Thank you.
I believe we can consider it as a floor amendment.
Okay, I'll
We'll speak
loop
with
around
our-
with you guys again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
At this point here, we'll read in our cards for both 4122 and 4245. Speaking in support, Michaela from, and not wishing to speak, Michaela Henderman from MDARD. Speaking in support of 4122 and 4245, Rebecca Parks from Michigan Farm Bureau. And speaking in support of 4245, Michaela from MDARD. with that, we, okay. Yeah, we're waiting for Representative Wart's had to step out for a moment. We'll go at ease for a moment. She had to go? All right. What's that? Okay. We are ready to take, at this time here, we'll take a vote to begin right now. Representative Wartz moves that report House Bill 4245 with recommendations. Will clerk please take the roll?
Chair Neyer,
Yes.
Representative Wartz,
Yes.
Leitner,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
is that a yes?
Yes.
Coons? Oh, Fox?
Yay.
Coons?
Yes.
Pavlo?
Yes.
Pies?
Musical chairs.
Stevendorf? Yes. Jenkins? Pass. Thank you. Skaggs?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 yeas, 0 nays, 1 pass. The motion prevails.
Thank you. House Bill 4245 is reported with recommendations. Next on our agenda, we will take testimony on House Bill HB 4076. Representative Alexander moves to adopt substitute H1 for House Bill 4076. Will the clerk please take the roll call vote?
Chair Neyer,
Yes.
Representative Wartz,
Yes.
Leitner,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Fox,
Yay.
Coons,
Yes.
Pavlo,
Yes.
Pies, Stevendorf,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
The committee will come back to order. Chair Neyer, please begin when you're ready.
Thank you. House Bill 4076 is dealing with a new potential product that's coming to light in recent years. Lab-grown meats is simply a process of what they're calling lab-grown meats is a new protein that's being introduced there underneath the label of using animal material to produce protein in the lab as opposed to the traditional method of on the hoof. And my bill simply is asking that this be clearly labeled in the marketplace, allowing people to make that choice, an informed choice. is no different than what we currently do right now with our vegetable products that are such as your veggie meats and other protein substitutes or meat substitutes. Consumers across the state deserve to know what they're buying when they're making their decisions, and demonstrate to the consumers the transparency of what's in front of them. The other forms of plant-based proteins are clearly labeled in the stores. This just continues that practice with this new product, but still gives the consumer the choice to be able to buy that. It doesn't eliminate it, doesn't restrict what they can get to it there. It just simply tells them what's inside the box. Simply put, consumers have a right to know whether or not their protein it comes from the hoof or comes from a container. I'll be open to any questions if you'd like to ask.
Representative Reinigans?
Thank you, Chair. Can you walk us through your advocacy that folks brought this to you, or what prompted you to introduce this bill?
Well, other states are done similar language here. They're calling it lab-grown meat. They're using the meat label purposely to ride on the reputation of what's the products that are out there right now, and that's fine. I don't have nothing against of this product either, but it's not the traditional method. There's a lot of different processes that go into place to growing this product. It's not considered what you'd say natural or organic by any means, and so it's just plain truth in advertising.
So, if we wanted truth in advertising for a variety of topics, we could realize that, ladyfingers, the dessert doesn't actually have a lady's fingers in it. Are we needing to expand this? I mean, this seems like a little bit of
being
extra.
that this is a new product there, I think the clarity needs to be out there. For years, soy milk, oat milk has been using the title oat or the title milk in their label, and it's clearly not. It's a beverage or a juice. And so FDA has finally started pushing, and it's been on the books for years, FDA has finally pushed those companies to not advertise it as milk. It's not a dairy product. It doesn't contain any dairy. This, although it contains animal protein, it's not grown in the traditional method. There's a whole different system in place there, and people just simply need to be informed.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Neyer. Is there any sense that the USDA is planning on passing a nationwide labeling structure? And how would this fit into that if they were to do it?
At this point, there is discussion. There hasn't been any significant movement. Part of my reasoning for bringing this forward there is to help put pressure onto the USDA or the FDA to do the same thing as that they have done with dairy and separating that from and getting that labeling correct. Several other states have done this there. Reason why we adopted, I believe it was Kentucky's language there, so that we matched their language. So we're speaking with a common language to when the USDA or FDA is ready to take that up. There's some language out there in states that are clearly supporting the idea of labeling this.
So if I may just do a quick follow-up, so your hope is that USDA or some federal agency would come in and have clear language so that the consumer would avoid confusion, and that this state law would not conflict with that in any way.
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm trying to use a common language that matches other states. Our hope is, currently right now, there isn't any processor in the country that is marketing that's here. This is more of a preemptive move. It's starting to gain momentum, and I don't want to knock down consumer choice, but I want to make it clear that that there is a definite difference between the way traditional meat protein is raised and what this new product does.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Representative Devendorf.
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of looking for uniformity and clarity in the labels that we use, I'm curious as to the various designations that were added in the offered amendment. I see here 4 different names for lab-grown meat, as well as the ever-ambiguous, similar, accurate, qualifying term or disclaimer intended to clearly communicate to a consumer the contents of the product. Is there one main term at the federal level that is preferred and used most often so that we can start to model our legislation after a more uniform language, and/or are these actually different categories? Are there distinguishing features between these different labels, and that's why we are offering multiple options to put on lab-grown meat?
There is different systems, and which one survives the market process or to get to the consumer is not clear yet. So we've casted a wider net, and right now I am not aware of or have not been able to find anything at the federal level that clearly defines what a lab-grown meat is or these various categories. I'm open, when that's available, I'm open to go with what the federal standard is.
The chair recognizes Representative Pies, if she's still there. I think you might be on mute, Representative.
No, I'm not on mute.
It needs to turn it up.
Maybe while we're waiting for that, I do have one question. We'll see if we can get that volume fixed on that. Just curious, Representative, when it says on the last page, a meat product that contains a type of meat consisting of less than 20% of that meat may be labeled as blank added or product with blank inserting the common name of that meat. Why 20%? Is that a federal standard, or why are we not doing 50%? If it's less than 50%, then it's less than meat protein. Where's that 20% coming from? Just curious.
That 20% is most likely, or is what is used as a, sort of a starter product. They are starting with a meat protein, a animal protein of some sort, and so this defines what that common number is. That's roughly what they use to start it with. After that, the whole process of finishing out that product to that 100% is not the traditional or animal fed. It's being fed through a reactor or nutrient fed in the lab, not the traditional growing process that an animal does. So that's just recognizing that there is limiting that amount of protein, or recognizing that starting or limited amount of protein that's in that.
So if a product only contained, let's say 40% meat, it would be labeled as meat?
Quite possibly. There's meat products out there right now that use fillers that are recognized, still contains a certain percentage of meat. That happens also in dairy, and also, I can't think of another product right now, but it's still there's a certain percentage that's still considered a meat product that may contain other products, a soy filler or something like that. So.
Okay, thank you. I bet it doesn't happen in vegetables. Are we able to hear Representative Pies? No, okay. You have her question? Okay.
For Rep. Pice, she says she is wondering if adverse terms like cultured or manufactured might have an influence here. The question seems to be wondering about if those types of terms might have an adverse impact on people who don't know what they mean.
As in their choice or what it,
Like saying the words that were added, I think in the sub that said cell culture, lab grown, cultivated, cell cultivated. If one of those words were included, is that more confusing for consumers than saying lab grown or?
well, it's to cover, those put in
Any
there
of them.
for, to cover all the terms, whether you call it lab grown, cultured grown, those ones there are the terminologies that are currently being used
Elsewhere.
in development, in the development phases.
Okay. I think that was her question. So
All right.
hopefully I did you justice, Rep. Pice.
There being no more further questions, the committee will go to ease.
Okay. Committee will come back to order. Representative Pavlo asks or recognizes the, excuse me, moves to adopt the minutes from March 20th meeting with no objections. Minutes are adopted. At this time here, sorry, I missed reading in the cards for 46 or 4076. Support not wishing to speak, Rebecca Parks from Michigan Farm Bureau. In support of the bill, wishing not to speak, Pepin Tuma from Good Foods Industries. And wishing not to speak in opposition to the bill, Veg Michigan. Mr. Skike? Valerie Shike. With that, seeing nothing else in front of the committee at this time, excused absent members. Representative Fox asks that all absent members be excused. Hearing no objections, all absent members are excused. And seeing no further, nothing else before this committee, we adjourned.